a B, but not in the way you're thinking. I'm Shakir McDonald, and I'm a brilliant, educated, and empowered educator, author, entrepreneur, wife, and mom. All the kids I work with call me Queen B, so it's only right that I give you a B joke. Ready? Okay. What do you call a bee born in May? A maybe. All right. I'm not a great comedian, but for the purpose of this talk, I'm going to be a gardener, a storyteller, and a poet. So bear with me. I'll start with my gardening skills. I suck as a gardener. I have found every possible way to kill a plant. I've overwatered, underwatered, given too much light, too little light, not enough air, not enough nutrients, you name it, I've killed a plant that way. And I know what you're thinking. What does any of this have to do with your talk? Well, everything. You see, I've learned from being a terrible gardener how to be a great teacher, educator, and parent. You see, I believe that children are like plants, boundless potential for growth, fragile, delicate, but resilient. And I believe that even with the best of intentions, we can stunt their growth and delay their development. I believe that like plants, children need essential things to grow and thrive. And it's the under or overexposure that can dampen their spirits, deaden their hope, and kill their will. But let's get to the root of this. Our education system is essentially an industrial model of inputs, outputs, and outcomes. This model weeds out those that learn differently and don't develop rapidly, and only rewards conformity and compliance. Children come into kindergarten wanting to know everything, wanting to learn everything there is to know. And if they even make it to 12th grade, they leave wanting to learn only that which is necessary to ascend to the next level or rung. The education system has essentially concentrated intelligence into two very rigid stems of intelligence. Either your child is good in math and science or reading and writing. Report cards have essentially become the interpretive measure by which we determine if children are smart, rather than the launching point to teach to how they're smart. This system has permeated not only our educational policies and procedures, but it's seeped into our parenting as well. Have you ever seen a bumper sticker that said proud parent, period? Or has every bumper sticker boasted some metric by which children's performance was being celebrated and our pride in them performance-based? I struggled with this too as a parent. My son didn't fit the one-size-fits-all model of traditional education. For my son, school was a cauldron of competition and curricular weeding that categorized kids by their struggles rather than their strengths. But I want to dig a little deeper with you. I want to share with you a time where, like my plants, I saw a child's spirit killed. One of the things that I'm very passionate about is going to schools and speaking to kids about multiple intelligences. I went into this classroom this day, like I go into every classroom, but it was something that I noticed right away. This classroom was alive. Every wall, everywhere you looked, it was alive with data. Every wall boasted some metric by which kids were indexed or categorized. So I started out my session the way I do every session. I asked the kids, who in here is smart? Every kid raised their hand except for one kid in particular. And when I made eye contact with him, he quietly tried to raise his hand. But I wasn't the only one that noticed. The young lady sitting next to him noticed him raise his hand. And she said, "You're not smart. You scored basic on the MSA." His peers nodded and agreed that he wasn't smart. The little boy bowed his head and lowered his hand. So I asked the kids, well, how are you smart? I'm smart because I scored 100 on the last spelling test. I'm smart because I got proficient on the MSA. And I'm smart because I got straight A's last quarter. Every child giving me some school-based metric by which they were smart and by which the young man was not. So I went on with my story and proceeded to explain to them about multiple intelligences, the different ways that we're smart, how you can be arch smart, body smart, people smart, self-smart. I got to the end of my story and I asked the question again. Who in here is smart? The little boy who previously had bowed his head in shame, agreeing with his peers that he was not smart, was the first one to raise his hand. He said, I'm body smart because I'm good at basketball. I'm art smart because I love to draw. And I'm music smart because I love to write and listen to music. I could tell in that moment that no one could ever convince him again that he wasn't smart. You see, in that 20-minute session, I saw that young man's spirit killed. But we were able to speak life into him with the regenerative power of hope. I meet adults like this all the time, grown-ups that struggle and that believe that they're not smart because they failed to meet some school-based metric or didn't score high on a standardized assessment. These seeds can linger for decades. But there's hope. What I've learned in over 20 years of education and parenting is that every child is brilliant. And that like plants, children can regenerate, regrow, even in some of the worst environments. Because like plants, children want to grow. What I also learned about gardening and parenting and education is that it's not the job of the gardener to plant the perfect plant. It is the job of the gardener to create environments where his plant can bloom. Likewise, it's the job of the teacher and the parent to create environments where children can grow to their potential and develop the social emotional skills necessary to succeed not only in school, but in life. What I've learned is that the process for regrowing kids requires that we look at children as unique life systems that require individual efforts and individual programs and models to ensure their individual success. But remembering that like plants, kids also need these 7 essential things. Water. We need to water their dreams and not drown their hopes. Air. We need to provide air. Children need air. Next to air, the thing that children need most is to know that as parents and educators, our love and acceptance for them is not performance-based or conditional. Seeds. We have to plant seeds in children of self-acceptance and love so that they can cultivate hope for their future. Nutrients. The nutrients that we plant in children have to feed character so that they can develop the kind of empathy and compassion necessary for them to have social emotional skills necessary for success, not only in school, but in life. Light. We have to light our children's path for the future, understanding that as parents, gardeners, and teachers, that our job is to facilitate and illuminate the revelation of self, not the shaping and molding of it. Time. Children, like plants, need time. You don't plant a seed and expect for it to grow overnight. Same is true with children. Last but not least, space. Children need safe spaces and room to bloom. Plants don't grow comparing themselves to the plant next to it. And that's what makes the garden so beautiful. Children deserve the same. Then, if we can commit ourselves to that, then regrowing children is really quite simple. So simple, as promised, I wrote a poem about it. Here it goes. I grew a child today, but not in the usual way. I spoke life into that child before the school day did even start. I convinced them that there's lots of ways that they're actually smart. I watered their dreams, hopes, and ambitions, and modeled a love that wasn't performative or with conditions. I ensured that they had relational bonds, essential like air, to assure them that they were protected and that somebody cared. Next, the words that I spoke, there's life and death in the tongue. So I was careful with the words that I did sow, to ensure that seeds of self-doubt, anxiety, and fear didn't take root and grow. Then the nutrients I fed were of the positive, nourishing sort, because our children are the sum of their character, not their grades, report cards, or reports. Then I'd assure them that the light at the end of the tunnel was actually very bright. Because this grade, report card, benchmark is just a paragraph, an essay of their life. Then I'd assure them time to grow. Time to grow. And assure them that perfection is impossible, but progression can be slow. Then I've created safe spaces for them to make mistakes and grow, and wouldn't stigmatize for the things they didn't know. Last but not least, I'd ensure that every day I did small things to ensure their spirit could survive. Because I know if we raise a child like a plant, they can grow, develop, and thrive. Thank you.